Thank
Can you
you.
see that? All
That's
right.
perfect. Well,
Okay.
those who joined us this morning at the panel discussion, Paul was the moderator there, and here we are gracious enough to have him again as one of the speakers. Paul is the founder of Unlock Dynamic, and he will be talking about mental fitness, the top indicator of leadership excellence today. And Paul, floor is all yours. I will let you introduce yourself and talk more about yourself here now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Maria. Now, I know there's 3 other sessions at the moment, so if you're sitting in this room wondering whether this session is for you or whether to try out another session, I'm going to try and convince you to stay in this one, because should you stay or should you leave? Okay, so here are 4 reasons why I think this would be a really, really good session for you, no matter what your kind of situation is at the moment. So first of all, why you're not achieving your potential. So there's an 80% chance that you are one of the people who's not achieving their potential, both as a leader and as a human being. So that's one reason. The price you're paying. So if you're among that 80%, what is the price that you're paying for not being in that 20% who are achieving their potential? I'm also going to be sharing with you in this session, not necessarily some strategies, because I always feel that strategies are quick fixes and short term. So I'm actually going to be sharing with you something more powerful, and that's a habit. And so that's a habit in how you can really kickstart your potential. And if you stay right until the end, you will get access to an assessment, a free assessment to identify your blockers that are kind of blocking you from achieving your potential. So this is your opportunity now. Do you want to stay or you can go? I hope most of you will stay, because I think it's going to be a really, really interesting session. Just a quick introduction. My name is Paul Grainger. I'm the CEO of Unlock Dynamic. We work with a lot of school leaders, and we work on mental fitness. And mental fitness is really the topic of today. I think it's the most important thing in not only leadership, but in our lives in general, about how we can be the best version of ourselves. The reason why today I'm focusing on leadership is because I feel as leaders, we are responsible for others. And we're responsible, as some of you may have seen in the panel, that we're responsible for giving that energy to others in order to inspire others and to be empathetic with others and all those things with it. So I would say that mental fitness is important for everybody, but it's especially important for aspiring or current leaders, because you're going to be transmitting that energy to other people who really, really need it. So I'm just going to just go out of my slides for a minute, because I just want to see you all. I have a question for you. So let's start with this. Have you ever worked with a leader who is similar to the type of leader that I'm about to describe? So here we go. I'm going to explain some good points and some bad points. Okay. This may be a person that you've worked with or worked for, or maybe observed in another school or organization. Okay, so the good points of this person might be that they are really good at taking action. They're very good at taking charge. They are very decisive. They're good at making quick decisions. And they're very good at driving results. They're very kind of outcomes focused. However,
just give us 1 second here.
I'm sorry, there was a technical glitch here. We had to close the breakout rooms. We're opening again. You kindly rejoin. Sorry about this.
Okay, never mind.
I'll just wait a few seconds for everyone else to join or rejoin, I should say. Okay, I think most of us are here. Okay, so I was just asking you to imagine somebody who is good at taking charge, who's good at making decisions, who's good at driving results. But think about somebody who, despite these three good qualities, when they're under pressure, what happens is they tend to dominate, and they tend to get really, really controlling in terms of the situation and in terms of people as well. So they dominate the situation and they dominate people, and they become really impatient. Sometimes they may become very confrontational. They may become very critical. They may even start bullying when things don't go their way. And the other thing they tend to do is they tend to not be able to delegate appropriately. They try to kind of, because they want to be in control, they try to do everything themselves. So just put in the chat, have you ever come across this type of leader before? Let's see. Just put a yes or a no if that kind of sounds familiar to you. Nanesha says thankfully no. Okay. Anyone else? Have you come across this type of leader before? Okay, while you're thinking, so the
Sorry,
impact
Paul.
of,
I apologize, Paul. You're not sharing your screen.
I know.
Oh,
I'm
okay,
going to be
okay,
sharing my
that's
screen.
fine.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. I'm just waiting. So the general feeling is that when people become kind of impatient and confrontational and critical, they fail to delegate. The other people, there's a lot of pushback and resistance from other people. Other people tend to get disengaged very, very quickly. It may also be that people just don't feel trusted in that kind of situation. So this kind of person, they may get temporary results, but it's often at the cost of feeling resentful. So, sometimes we think about how can somebody so efficient in many ways have so many faults in other ways. Yeah. So I'm going to come back to this type of leader and really kind of take a deep dive into what's happened here. Why is this person under pressure becoming this kind of controlling, impatient, confrontational? Why do these habits kind of set in? Okay, so I'm going to take a real deep dive into that, explain what's happening, look at some other examples of that, and then how you can minimize any chance of this happening for yourself or for others, not only as a leader, but in other areas of your life. Now, this may show up differently in different people. So we'll having a look at, it may not necessarily be in a controlling way, but it may be in another way. So I'm going to start off with a joke. And then we're going to lead into why it's really important for educational leaders to have strong mental fitness. We're going to have a look at some data. But first, let's keep it lighthearted. We're going to start with a really, really old joke. So here's the joke. A mother is waking up her son. She says, "Paulie, come, wake up. You have to go to school." Son replies, "But I don't want to. The children annoy me and the teachers are a complete pain." Mother says, "Stop it now. Get up and off to school now." The reply is, "Mum, give me 2 reasons why I should go to the stupid school." And the mum replies, Paulie, first of all, you're 53 years old. And secondly, you're the headmaster. So I'm not sure why this joke has stuck in my head for so long. Perhaps it's because even back when I was a child, I felt it contained a strong element of truth to it. And over 40 years later, that sense of truth continues to be echoed by a lot of recent findings. So let me, I'm just going to pull up my screen and share with you some really quite interesting data around this. So have a look at this. I'll just let you take a look at it and digest it for a few seconds. So this is some data from an educational journal in the US called Education Week. And you can see the different types of people in there. You've got teachers, principals, and working adults. When they say working adults, it means working adults in any other industry outside of education. Okay, so it could be the technology industry or farming industry, just could be anything outside of education. And you can see here what's happening. So there's basically, you can see the frequency of stress. So both teachers and principals, the level of stress is much, much higher compared to the average working adult. And sometimes it's 2 or 3 times higher. In terms of burnout, it's fairly close, but we can see that teachers are ranked the highest. And probably even more disturbing is that 25% of both teachers and principals, and this is in the US, 25% have signs of depression. And also not coping well with stress. Again, both teachers and principals, compared to other working adults, are much higher up on that percentage scale. And by the way, this is not the only survey that shows this kind of worrying trend of stress and burnout among us educators. This was also reported by Gallup. I know they do a lot of surveys around the world in different areas. And Gallup reported in the same year that basically their findings were that educators had a much higher experience of burnout and stress compared to working adults. Okay, so in summary, stress, burnout, depression are on the rise in education, particularly in leadership. So we've seen both teachers and you've got the principals here as well. So imagine that you could remain calm, clear-headed, and positive, even in extremely stressful, exposed, which I think we in education are extremely exposed, and unfamiliar situations. So that's really what mental fitness is. It's having the resilience to, no matter what the challenge, no matter what the problem, to remain calm, clear-headed, and positive. So here's my definition of mental fitness. It's basically your capacity to respond to life's challenges with a positive rather than a negative mindset. Now, what impact is that going to have if we're able to kind of switch from the negative to positive, and we're able to kind of use our positive side of the brain a lot more than the negative? Basically, the impact of that, which we'll see in some of the data, is that our performance will improve dramatically. And also, of course, our peace of mind and our wellness and our relationships will be a lot more positive and healthy as well. And also bear in mind that all of these three areas on the right here, they're all interlinked. So for example, if our mental fitness is low and we start to underperform in our job, for example, that may well impact our health. And when our health goes down, that also may affect our relationships. So they're all kind of related to each other. Yeah, so it's really important that we try what we can to, as we'll see, to improve our mental fitness, because once we do that, our performance, our wellness, and our healthy relationships all improve together. Now, the other interesting thing is that only 1 in 5, so 20% of people, score above the minimum level of mental fitness required to be at that peak performance, peak happiness, or peak wellness. So only 1 in 5. So it's really a small number. And I would also add that seeing the results from that 2022 research, for school leaders, for teachers, this is likely to be even lower. So it could be about 1 in 7, 1 in 8, because of all the challenges in the mental and the stress and burnout involved. So the question is why? Why are only 1 in 5 people able to tap into their peak performance, their happiness, and their wellness? So that's what we're going to be exploring in this. So what's holding us back? So to answer this question, consider how much time you spend in negative emotions. So you got some examples here: anxiety, frustration, unhappiness, fear, stress, guilt, disappointment, anger, restlessness, or self-doubt. So a key reason for these really low percentages stems from a very unlikely source. And that source, which I'm going to reveal now, and it's not something we often think about, is actually self-sabotage. So I'll explain in a minute what exactly I mean by self-sabotage. But it's basically anytime your mind is in negative emotion for more than a single second, you are self-sabotaging. So if you're in a negative emotion, even for 5 minutes, during that whole 5 minutes, you're sabotaging yourself. So now, if you believe, a lot of questions I get at this stage are, do negative emotions play a positive role in driving you? So a lot of people say, well, yes, fear, restlessness, it gives me the energy to improve and to get into action. So what I want you to think about is this, using an analogy here. So if you put your hand on a hot stove, on a hub, how long would you be willing to feel the pain before you get the message? You'd probably want to take it off, in less than a second, right? You do not want to keep it on there for a long time. Otherwise, obviously, you'll burn your hand to the bone. And I think the same is true for our negative emotions. So they're only really helpful as a trigger or an alert to the dangers, the threats, the challenges. And staying in these emotions, it hurts our ability to see clearly and choose the best solution. So just as an example, thinking of from point of view as educators, teachers, or educational leaders, let's imagine that when your mind tells you that you need to prepare for tomorrow's lesson or tomorrow's parent meeting, for example. When it tells you that, it's acting as your friend. It's causing, it's causing a positive action. It's just a reminding you. But if it wakes you up at 3 a.m. anxious about the meeting or the lesson, and it's warning you for the 100th time about the many consequences of what might go wrong in the parent meeting or what might go wrong in the lesson, then it's not acting as your friend, it's acting as your enemy. It's just simply exhausting your mental resources. And it's got no value. So not even any friend would do that. So your mind can be your best friend, but it can also be your worst enemy. So how do we measure mental fitness? So I think we've all heard of IQ, and we've all heard of EQ, which is emotional intelligence. What may be new to you, and it certainly was new to me until about 6 months ago, was this concept of PQ. And PQ stands for positive intelligence quotient. And what that means is that it's a measurement of your mental fitness by the strength of your positive mental responses compared to your negative ones. And this is really important because, as we mentioned before, this level of mental fitness is critical for handling life's challenges, especially in the education world, which, as you saw from the results, they have so many, such a high level of daily stress and burnout. So what this means is that if you get a score, let's just think about the scores here. So if you get a score of 60 out of 100, it means that your mind is serving you 60% of the time, and it's sabotaging you 40% of the time. So that means 60% of your thoughts are positive and 40% of your thoughts are generally negative. So let's kind of match these up. So basically what this means is that the higher the percentage of your positive emotions, which you can see on the right here, the higher the percentage of your positive emotions against your negative emotions on the left, the higher your PQ score. So I've got a question for you. Thinking about this percentage score, what score do you think you may need to be able to kind of shift from negative to positive and to have your mind working for you rather than against you? Put it in the chat. What percentage of score do you need in order to be prepared for success? Let's put it that way. Let's have a look at the chat. What percentage do you need? Just put a number in the chat. What would be a good percentage? So some of you may be thinking that you need 50%. Okay, we got 70%. Thank you, Lanisha, 70%. Any more numbers? It's a good guess. It's a very good guess, Lanisha. You're almost correct. You're really close. So if some of you may have been thinking 50%, 50% is a good guess, but unfortunately, one negative thought for every positive thought, it still keeps us in survival mode because the brain is biased towards survival. And it's kind of wired to hang on to the negative and amplify it. And it ignores the positive, or it minimizes the positive. So in reality, we need three positives to counteract one negative. So in other words, we actually need 75%. And the 75% is what you can see here. 75% is the tipping point when your mind generally is working for you and you're able to get into that zone of peak performance. You're able to tap into your maximum for being really strong at empathy, getting into really strong relationships and healthy well-being as well. So,
sorry, Paul, another 5 minutes,
yes.
please. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's have a quick look at jumping forward to the definition of self-sabotage. So self-sabotage is really when your actions and thoughts stop you from doing what you really want to do. Now you're probably thinking, well, that's silly. I don't deliberately stop myself from doing what I want to do. But here's the interesting thing. So these actions and thoughts are usually invisible and they're subconscious. So most of us don't really realize that we are in self-sabotage because they're so kind of ingrained in us. They become such part of who we are. And that's why we're kind of unable to see them. So think of it like this. The most powerful and the most devastating saboteurs in wars were those who'd been kind of accepted by the enemy as friends and allies. And this photo that you can see here, these are actually French kind of spies from World War II who were able to speak fluent German, and they infiltrated into the German population, and they were able to become essentially saboteurs, picking up important messages and relaying them on. So in terms for us, the same holds true for your internal saboteurs. A lot of times we think they're friends, we think they are helping us, but in reality, they are turning us against our own selves. So if we look back at the example that I mentioned before, so the person who might be really good at taking charge, making decisions and driving results. So what are the conditions where that person might become dominating, controlling, critical, and sort of failing to delegate? So that there's two conditions here. The one condition is that their mental fitness is low. If their mental fitness was high, they would be resistant against it. And the second one is that the pressure was high. So they have low mental fitness and high pressure. Put those things together, and that activates what we call the, in this case, the controller saboteur. So in positive intelligence language, what happens is that we are essentially being hijacked. So the question is, how many saboteurs are there? Well, the good news is that actually in total, there's only 10. So you've got the 9 here, and you've got the judge. The judge is kind of the ringleader. Now, I'm not going to go into details of all of these. I will, in a couple of minutes, I'll send you a link to a survey where you can actually check out your saboteurs and see what are your top ranking saboteurs. And that, I think, will really, really help you to see where what you need to work on. The good news here is that generally, you only have 1 or 2 main saboteurs, and the rest of them are kind of just they're not active, they're passive. So the key thing here is just to focus on your top 1 or 2. So let me just go into it. So this is what you'll see when you get your results. You'll see your top saboteurs. Sometimes people worry about this. They think, oh my God, I've got so many saboteurs. But just focus on the first 2, because what happens when you kill one saboteur, all of the other saboteurs, they die along with it. So let me just go back here. So if you can, if you're on your laptop and you just scan that QR code, you will get to a quiz. And that quiz will take you through a few questions, and you're able to see what your positive intelligence score is. And then when you go through that, you'll also get a link to taking the saboteur assessment. I'm going to put the link in the chat as well. So let me just copy and paste the link in there so you can go directly to it. There we go. Is that, Maria, has that link come through?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So please feel free to play around with that, take the assessment and see what comes out. And it will also give you advice as well. So it will not only give you what your saboteur is, but it will give you some advice about what strategies to take in order to minimize your saboteurs. And that will, again, as I mentioned before, it's really, really important for anyone, especially thinking about a leadership role or in a leadership role, that you're able to identify these as a first step. Because once you're able to identify them, you can start working on them. And that's the first step to being mentally strong. So, so yeah, I hope that was useful. If there's any questions, do we have time for a question, Maria?
Thank you, Paul. It was really
Yeah.
enlightening, very thought-provoking, rather. So we have any questions? I can read it out to Paul, or you can open your mic and communicate with him directly, as you wish. So Lanisha is saying, thank you. It was truly thought-provoking session.
Thank you, Lanisha. Thank you for your questions as well.
Any questions you wish to ask, please let us know.
Lanisha, do take the assessment. I will be watching, and I will make sure that your results. I'll give you some personal feedback on your results as well. There's a lot of things.
Lanisha was my instructional supervisor.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes,
okay.
she's the right person to take it.
Okay. Should be really interesting.
So
And she is still in the Hobart branch, yes.
Yeah. I'm learning a lot, I'm learning on the go. So this was truly, like I said, very thought-provoking, and I'm looking forward to getting your feedback on my results. So
And Lanisha, are you in a leadership role, or are you going into one?
Yeah, I'm an instructional coordinator. So I work like right under our assistant director. And in our current context, the traditional kind of responsibilities of the instructional coordinator, like my role kind of surpasses that, because we're like small, we're like a small campus. We're just starting out. So there are a lot of things that I normally wouldn't do that I have been doing. So.
And are you finding a lot of stress in your job?
Yeah, but I think it's probably mostly self-imposed, because like I want to do such a good job. I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing, that all of like the teachers that I'm responsible for are able to do their job, and the students are happy. So that's pretty much why I'm feeling stressed.
I can already anticipate what your saboteurs are.
When I looked at it, I was like, pleaser is probably at the top of it, at the top of the list.
So you've got pleaser, but potentially stickler as well. Stickler is the one for perfectionism. Yeah.
I don't think so, but we'll see.
Well, do the assessment, and you'll see if you're usually people are generally quite good at guessing which ones they are. But the challenge is to, what do you do about it, and how do you catch yourself each time you feel yourself getting sabotaged? Exactly. Unfortunately, most of the time people are not aware that they're being sabotaged, because it's become part of their skin.
I think I'm okay with knowing when it's happening, and then, but still not really able to step out of it.
Right. Thank you so much. I think there aren't any questions. So we will stop here, and thank you so much, Paul, for your session. As usual, very enlightening and very thought-provoking. And for aspiring leaders, they have something to go away with and think about those things. Thank you so much.